Hi everyone, my name is Taherah and today is Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our book of the week, which is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. First, this is a spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read this book yet, don't worry about it. It won't be spoiled for you here. There will be some spoiler-related things that I want to discuss, but that'll be later on in the video, and you will get plenty of warning. If you'd like to join in on any of the book discussions, send me your thoughts, comments, or even a short video clip of you discussing the book, then I'll list the next upcoming 4 books in the description below. I think this book came out sometime around June, July last year, and when I saw that it was coming out, I immediately added it to my TBR because I had previously read, I think, The Hunting Party by the same author, and I really enjoyed it. I remember thinking at the time that she had a great way of writing a really diverse group of characters while immersing you into this mystery, so when this one came out, I knew I wanted to read it. So naturally, roll forward by a full year and I'm finally getting around to reading it, which I think says enough about my TBR, and to be honest, I don't tend to read a ton of thrillers. I'm pretty much never in the mood to actively choose to read a thriller. I know that once I start to read it, I'll probably enjoy it, but I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone else or if I'm just alone in that. Anyway, I rated this one 4 stars. As I said, I might have to initially force myself into picking up a thriller, but I actually usually enjoy them when I do. I love a good thriller, and I don't tend to read them outside of book club. This book was absolutely worth 4 stars. It was a great read. Despite there being multiple perspectives and a ton of twists, it was still a really easy read and pretty straightforward to follow. Okay, so a quick summary. For starters, everyone is lying. In the shadow of an ancient wood, guests gather for the opening weekend of the Manor Hotel and a summer feast. But as the candles are lit, tension sparks and old animosities reignite. This isn't a celebration, but a deadly reunion, and it's time that someone got their just desserts. Geez, even that summary was intense. If I had to compare this to any other book, I would probably say something like 9 Perfect Strangers, Luckiest Girl Alive, and maybe like A Simple Favor all rolled into one, but at the same time, better. Personally, I think that The Midnight Feast was a lot easier to read and way more gripping than any of those books. As I said, there are multiple POVs, and sometimes you get chapters that are set in the past, so it is a little all over the place. Which is something that I usually hate, but in this case I think that it really worked. It added to the tension and helped me come up with new theories, and I think it just really added to the story. I usually hate it, but when it's done really well like this, and it still remains to be a really easy read, then it can be amazing. The chapter lengths were great as well, which I think helps to build the tension, but it also helps to follow the story because it keeps those characters fresh in your mind. There were moments where a chapter would end and we would then move on to a new character, and I would almost be a little disappointed because of what was happening, I wanted to stay with that character and find out what was going to happen next. Which was great, however, it does also mean that you had to read quite a lot before much progressed plot-wise, so it really did stretch out the story. The pacing was quite slow, so for a while you really wouldn't have any clue what was going on or why, and sometimes you wouldn't even know why you were reading from a certain person's perspective. But at this point we also know that I rate books based on how I feel immediately after reading a book, so I'm not exactly opposed to my rating being heavily influenced by the big twists and how it ends. So while it might not have been super gripping in the beginning, for me, it was absolutely worth it for the ending. I mean, that's not to say that the first half wasn't intriguing or interesting. Like, it may have been a little slow and maybe even a little boring at times, but I was still curious as to what was happening, why they were all there, and what had happened in the past. There were some twists in this book that I did see coming and others that I absolutely did not. As I said, it may have been a bit of a slow start, but the ending was amazing. I know I go on a lot about disliking this trope and that trope, but there is nothing more that I dislike in the book world than a plot twist just coming out of nowhere or not making any sense. In this book, not only did the plot twists make sense, but I could also think back and see the foreshadowing and all of the clues. It all tied together in such an immaculate way, and I think that that's what I enjoyed so much about this book. It all just was so well thought out, and every little detail had a purpose. So, as for the question, would I recommend the book? You see, this is where I'm having some trouble because I absolutely would, but I can also see why it's not for some people. Like, if you're someone who needs to have a lot happening from the very start and tension from the very beginning and you struggle with a slower paced book, then this one's probably not for you. But if you're someone who doesn't mind a gradual build and a ton of reveals at the very end, then I would recommend this one because it was absolutely worth it. Like, it might feel a little slow paced, but every little detail had a purpose, it meant something, and it all came together so wonderfully in the end. So will I be reading any more by Lucy Foley? Yeah, absolutely. This is the second book I've read by this author, and I've really enjoyed both. Both books were completely different, but it had great writing, slow building tension, and fantastic characters, so if I found another one that I thought looked interesting, then I absolutely would add it to my TBR. So earlier on in the video I said that you would get plenty of warning for any upcoming spoilers. This is that moment, so if you haven't read this book yet, I would suggest going doing that first, because beyond this point there will absolutely be spoilers. There were just so many elements to this book that just kept coming together, and I loved that. I mean, I knew that the detective was probably going to be involved somehow, but maybe I didn't think about it enough. I did not see him turning out to be Jake until pretty late on. Just with the way that the others were talking about him, I did actually assume that he was dead, or that maybe he was going to turn out to be the local homeless addict or something. It was a great twist. I did from pretty early on, especially after we discovered what Frankie's brothers probably did to Michelle, suspect that she had a hand in setting things in motion, or maybe was involved in messing with Francesca. Did they tell us how she discovered about the murder? Because I genuinely can't remember, but from pretty much the beginning I thought that she was quite a suspicious character, and up until the end I had assumed that she was the one who had sent Bella the clipping. Frankie going as far as unaliving someone and then getting her family to cover it up wasn't even remotely shocking. I mean, in the beginning, I did think that she was self-centered but mostly harmless. By the time we reached the brownie stage, there was no doubt in my mind that she had every intention of unaliving all three of them. However, her husband Owen turning out to be Shrimp, now that was a surprise. I think that it was an amazing twist that really gave Cora's character some depth, because originally I was thinking, why the hell is this woman hanging out with a bunch of kids? Like, I know that there weren't a ton of years between them all, but still it was a bit weird. But I guess it was also her opportunity to have a little bit less responsibility in her life again. I just love how all these twists came together and just made complete sense. Now, the crows played a pretty significant part, but they were really weird. I kind of thought that they were going to play a much bigger part. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were definitely significant characters, and they definitely played a part in Frankie's grandfather's death, but they didn't overshadow the rest of the story like I thought they might have. I also really didn't expect one of them to be Eddie's mum. I thought that that was such a fun little twist. Overall, just with how well it was written, it was such a satisfying reading experience. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book? Next week we're discussing Love on the Brain by Hazelwood, so don't forget to get your thoughts and comments in by Sunday the 27th of July at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week will be Circle of Liars, but don't forget, if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below, along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you, and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye! If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below a video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message.